the joys of vlogging on your own. Whew. How much does an assistant cost? Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So tonight I'm out in North Cornwall to do a sunset shoot at the Rumps near a place called New Paul's Heath, which hopefully will turn out to be quite a stunning evening. We've got lovely cloud cover, the sun, there's a little bit of haze on the horizon, but we'll just have to work out how that goes. But yeah, fantastic location so far. I met a great guy who's given us a lift up and a bit of a scope out of the area, so hopefully work out to be a really good shoot. Come along for the journey. So, made it to the coastline here and got my first composition set up. Absolutely stunning location, really chuffed that I've actually made the effort to come out here this evening. So what we've got here is the Rumps, and they're three sort of mounds on the edge of the sea here, creating the sea cliffs. And I love this composition. I've got obviously some of the foreground of the sea, the immediate foreground is one of the edge of the cliffs that's obviously disappearing off the edge, then going into the sea, and then obviously getting the full sort of two to three main sort of peaks of the Rumps here. So working out really interesting. I've got the camera set up on f11, ISO 100, and taking two separate exposures, one at 1/30th of a second for the highlights, or apologies for the shadows, and then one at 1/40th of a second, just obviously for the highlights for that one. And then obviously looking to have both of them in the bag, working out which one's going to be the best, or may well consider blending both images together. But yeah, it's just waiting for the timing right, because on one of the Rumps here that's got the rocks that are facing, it's sometimes catching the sun and then glowing that little bit more and lifting that image. So making sure that when that composition or when that light hits that part of the image, then actually taking the image. So yeah, working out really well. Hopefully with the sun that's sort of sitting in that direction, there's a little bit of haze there, a little bit of cloud, touch and go, but that's the fun of landscape photography. If it was that easy, then we wouldn't bother coming out. I've already had the camera blown over once, so it's still surviving, and incredibly chuffed with how the Canon 600D is really putting up with this vlogging test that I'm putting it through, and particularly the lens, the 10 to 18 mil EFF lens is working out really well, but definitely taking a battering. But photography wise, yeah, really looking forward to this shoot, and hopefully come out with another couple of compositions as well. So for the next composition, I've pretty much done 180 degrees now. Looking straight out, there's one of these sea stacks that are out there on the sea, obviously, but pretty much lining up with the setting sun and getting that lovely streak of light that's obviously created on the sea or any water when the sun's setting. However, making it a little bit more different by screwing in the ND or 10 stop ND filter that I've got and taking two exposures. One exposure at 13 seconds for the foreground and the shadows, and then another exposure at 3.2 seconds for the highlights. Because there's such a dynamic range, it's obviously going to be too difficult to bracket that image, but yeah, hopefully with this one work out really well, blend the two images together. But again, having the long exposure as well and making that sort of sea that little bit more silky smooth, but also picking out on the detail and the reflections as well. So yeah, may well consider this one as well in black and white, but yeah, interesting. So as I say, obviously the exposure times, but the f-stop I've got it set up on is f11 ISO 100, and as I say, a 13-second exposure and also a 3.2-second exposure. But yeah, loving the light now. It's really, as you can pick up on my face, coming through, the clouds breaking up, so fingers crossed that actually works out really well. But let's move on now to the next location. I've just made it down the path a little bit further now and got the camera set up just over there, as you can see, taking a pano image of about 5-6 shots right across the rumps over there, working out to be really interesting. So I've got the camera set up on f11 ISO 100 and approximately 1/50th of a second exposure, and then taking those several images in portrait orientation right across there, working out really interesting. I love the lie of the land here, as you've got the bend of the actual side of the cliff that I'm on here, creating that bottom foreground interest, but then obviously as it bends and sweeps right round to the edge over here of the rumps, working out to be a really interesting composition. Stitching them all together, making sure that obviously the camera is as level as possible, which is a critical thing, and obviously adding on with that base leveler as well helps me to make sure that obviously I've got it as level as possible, and then as I say, taking those several images throughout the composition. but as you can see, this is absolutely stunning location. Had a couple of people walking along because it's right on the southwest coast path here, and obviously along to sort of Boscastle in that direction, I believe. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. So hopefully the sun will still be there, but again the clouds sort of rolling in. It's a bit of hit and miss, but working out to be a really enjoyable shoot, regardless of obviously the actual A1 image that I'm going to get. Who knows? But the fact of actually being out with a camera as I'm in this area, which I don't get to visit that often at all, but yeah, luckily enough to come out this evening for an evening shoot, but making the most of it, which is the key thing. Photography trips, the bank of clouds come right in on the horizon. We've only about 20 minutes or so to go until actual sunset. Unfortunately, I don't really think I'm going to get that sunset image that I'm really after. However, let's not be put off by this location. There's so many compositions here that are really interesting. So I probably made it along as far as I wanted to for compositions of the actual rumps themselves, to probably the last little bit here, just before you actually go onto the main stack itself of the rumps, which I'll probably explore in a little bit. But for this image, I've got a great composition with a bit of foreground. It's the headland that I'm actually standing on is here, leading and curving right round up to one of the stacks of the rumps here. Working out really interesting. So I've got the image set up on, I'll just double check. F11, ISO 100 and 1/8 of a second exposure in landscape orientation. I didn't really feel that I wanted to take another Pano image. I took that a little bit further back up the path, so already got one of those in the bags. I don't think this composition would really work as a Pano anyway. I did look at composing it with the other stack here of the rumps, but it just really wasn't working. There's too much green foreground, not really getting much detail. And I felt the sort of curved shape of the foreground, and obviously with a sea as well, worked out really interesting. I might consider in a second to put the 10-stop ND filter on, just to obviously take a longer exposure. As we're getting that muted light now, I can increase the shutter speed that little bit further, smooth out the water as much as possible. So yeah, hopefully working out really interesting. Another composition I might consider from this location as well is using the reach of the 18 to 135 lens on, or even the 70 to 300mm lens that I've got, and picking out some of the waves that are crashing up against the rocks here, because they're amazing images that and shapes that they're creating. So yeah, hopefully stay here for a little bit. Never know, the photography gods might be on my side, and that break of cloud for a few seconds may happen, but yeah, I don't think it's that possible, but who knows, who knows. as expected, the cloud's not shifting at all, but still sticking with the same composition as earlier for this fantastic image that I've just taken. In my opinion, that is. Feel free to comment below. But yeah, sticking with the same composition, f11 ISO 100, but just over 2.5 minute exposure with the 10 stop ND filter on. A fantastic smooth sea with the white edges where there's obviously waves are crashing up against the rocks here. Working out a really interesting image. It's one of those images that I really wanted to capture from my time in Cornwall, because there's nothing like this where I live, absolutely nothing at all. For those that have watched my regular vlogs, the nearest that we get to this in Essex is the mud boulders over at Bradwell-on-Sea at the chapel there of St Peter's, but yeah, this is dramatic coastline to the max, and a reason why I really wanted to come here and utilise the time and take some of these long exposure images so I can actually create those area of my portfolio that I haven't actually captured yet. So yeah, working out really interesting. But yeah, I'll probably make a way round to the car now, see if I've got anything sort of going back in that direction. But yeah, for the actual sort of golden light, unfortunately never really worked out. But don't ever be put off from that. If you haven't got the conditions, well, you haven't got the conditions. Don't ever put it against you because you've not got those conditions. Yes, if you do have it, absolutely fantastic, massive bonus, but never be put off by what conditions you've got. Always be pleased that you've actually taken an image. That's the fact, really, to be fair. And hopefully, yeah, 1 or 2 more compositions on the way back to the car. So I've made it right up to the headland here of the Rumps now. Unfortunately, the light is really against me. It probably looks a lot brighter than it is on camera. It's yeah, it's probably not really the greatest time to actually take some photography, but particularly as I've got about a 20-minute walk or so back to the car. The moon's coming out, so yeah, probably a time to end the vlog here. But fantastic location. As I've said, really pleased that I've made the effort to come out here this evening. Some of the images that I've captured is really the ones that I wanted to do. It's yeah, it's fantastic to explore new locations, particularly when you don't get the opportunities that often at all. Maybe once every few years or so, the opportunities I'm going to get to come down to this area of the country. But that's just the way it is. But making the most of it nevertheless. I've been to a couple of other locations since I've been here in Cornwall. Not actually vlogged them, but I will post up some of the images that I've been to as well, and obviously the locations. So yeah, fantastic is all I can sum it up as. Hope you've enjoyed some of the images as well. Please make sure you leave us a comment as well, and if you haven't considered it already, please consider subscribing. thanks a lot to everyone that's recently subscribed to my channel as well. Huge thank you. Yeah, really sort of steadily picking up the pace and growing to that 200 mark, which is my ultimate goal. But really appreciating the feedback and the comments as well. So thank you very much for that. But until next time, take care.